we help athletes develop proficiency in assisting their passion for the game that they love. We have some great response from listeners. I want to say thank you for listening and keep on passing the word around and downloading our episode on Spotify of your choice. Today is episode 83. Today's guest was the daughter of the former owner of the Oakland A's. She is an author and later became a model, a paralegic, and she also lived in the Bay Area all the way up to 2020. She shares memories of Oakland, and from that, she was the hot pants day to the Finley's unexpected sell to the team that building the lasting relationship that ties with the era of the Oakland A's. And we know now that they're actually in Sacramento, but they're going to Las Vegas. But with all that, son, we're going to talk a little bit about the history. Let's bring on the very own author herself, Nancy Finley. How you doing, Nancy?
Fine. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm glad that I'm able to talk a little bit about one of my favorite teams growing up.
Really?
Yes, this is one of my favorite teams growing up because at that time, baseball was one of the big things back in the day because they had Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, Ricky Henderson,
Ricky,
Dave's,
my,
yeah,
yeah, I
and
remember Ricky.
Dave Stewart,
Oh, yeah.
and I don't remember any, but those names right there is enough.
Reggie,
And
Reggie,
Reggie Jackson, also the Dave
they,
Eckersley, Dave
he came a year after, yeah, we didn't sign him, but dad was still there. Yeah.
but that was the day. Those the days. I remember the Bay World Series.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that.
I
That was
went to
great.
games 1 and 2 and stayed home for 3, and look what happens. Yeah,
Hey, yeah, but Oakland won that, so
we
I
did.
was I was pretty happy about that. And
Mhm.
then later after that, I became a San Francisco Giants
They
fan.
have not won a World Series since.
No,
Interesting, because since 1995, they've started receiving that limited revenue fee
yeah,
every year. No
yes,
World Series. How do you explain that? That's a lot of money.
yeah, it
We
is.
didn't get that.
We got we got a lot to talk about, and a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, for the listeners, this is episode 83. I want to say this because we're not going to get everything done today. I'm going to share this with you now, and the reason I said that is because she is an author, and here's a copy of her book. I have a copy of her book, and it's a pretty thick book. So don't think we're going to get everything done today. It's not going to happen. We're going to have another episode after this, and we'll keep you posted. So
Tale of
be
Two Cities.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got some other great news we're gonna talk about. But Nancy, I want to say thank you. God bless, and I want to say, hey, I got a question for you. Let's start off from the beginning,
Yes.
the genesis of Nancy Finley and your dad. How was it like growing up in Dallas? And for the listeners, I read some of the book. She's from Dallas. So what was that like growing up as a little girl in Dallas, going to Oakland, California?
Well, at that time we had a white picket fence neighborhood, and Dad would walk home with his briefcase. He was a high school principal. I
Mm-hmm.
would wait outside and run to him, and next thing I know, Charlie has convinced Dad to quit what he's doing and join him with his new team. It took 6 months, but Dad did it. So Mom and I had to stay in Dallas a year until we sold the house, but we would fly twice a month, fly
Mm.
Dallas to Kansas City. And I remember up there with the team, seeing the rabbit come out of the ground with those red eyes. We would play music before, and then
That's funny.
there were cage monkeys named after my uncles.
So cage monkeys.
I'm a monkey's uncle. Get it? Yeah, that was Charlie's. And then we had dyed sheep grazing in the grass, dyed blue, green, red, and then we had fireworks after every home run. Not only that, former President Harry Truman sat next to me.
Oh
I didn't
man,
know who he was though. He
man.
was real nice because I walked around a lot, and he would let me play with his tie.
You got a lot of history. I mean, like I said, guys, I'm telling you, this is a very huge, unusual podcast today because
Oh,
we're gonna
and the
talk.
way Satchel Paige entered the stadium.
Oh, I listen. You just struck a good nerve. I didn't even know that Satchel Paige was anywhere around. Wait a minute. I didn't even get to my first question yet. What do you
Oh,
mean, Satchel Paige? What are you talking
well,
about?
my hair is everyone's hair is blowing around, and there's this helicopter coming down on top of us. We're behind
Nancy,
the
is this
weather.
is this a true story or are you just making
Yes,
this up?
yes, true story. And the
Okay.
helicopter lands on the field, and out comes Satchel Paige with a nurse, and we had a rocking chair right there at the dugout for him,
In
so he
Oakland?
could play a game. He
What's it?
said Satchel Paige said he'd never been more scared than that helicopter when he saw the ground getting close. But yeah, that was in 1964.
How do you remember all this?
It's
1960.
just bad. I don't remember going how we got inside, but I just remember being there in my seat.
Oh,
Yeah,
Satchel Paige.
yeah. He's.
Wow.
I remember that helicopter. Just.
Man, so your
I,
dad knew Satchel Paige.
oh yes, and then the Beatles performed a year that year. I have this
1964.
this ticket. That was our ticket.
Oh, really?
Yes. And then I was sick with scarlet fever, so I had to be quarantined. My mom's a nurse, so she sat in an office with me. And I remember hearing the fans screaming, and I knew that was not usual. They didn't scream that way. So
Hmm.
I had never been to any kind of concert like that,
Okay.
but I had to
Okay.
stay laying down. But
Yeah,
Dad
but
and
you're young.
Charlie met with them.
You were pretty young back then, so
I was.
you're a little girl.
Dad said they were a nice group of young men, spoken like a true principal.
It's funny. I mean, I didn't even know. I mean, I haven't even got to my first question, but I gotta say this. Wait a minute. I'm just baffled of shock. You said Satchel Paige. I mean, Satchel Paige is he's like Nolan Ryan on steroids
Oh
because he
wow.
was so old when he started. We
He was
don't
so
really,
nice.
and you don't know his real age. Nobody really knows what his real age was.
He
From
looked
what
so confident. Like, what are you looking at? I mean, he was very
I mean,
confident.
Satchel Paige is. Do you know any stories with your dad telling you about Satchel Paige? Anything you can
Just how
remember?
nice, just what a nice person he was. He was good.
Wow,
Yeah, they loved having him around.
Satchel Paige, man.
Yes.
I wish that I could see him or just meet him and just talk to him and ask him questions because we also know some. I don't know all the story because there's always three sides to every story. Your side, the other person's side, and God's story to every story. And the reason I said it because talking about somebody else that Reggie Jackson. I looked at this documentary, talked about Reggie Jackson,
I
talking
saw
about,
that.
and
Yeah.
he talked about Oakland. So, but I don't believe everything that I see.
He didn't show a lot. Right.
Correct, and I don't believe everything. But I'm gonna ask you a question. Was Reggie Jackson around when your dad was the owner?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Okay,
we signed him. I have a
okay,
picture of when we signed him in
okay,
Kansas City.
okay. Because I was just wondering because he said that the people were mean, from my understanding,
I don't think he. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I think he's.
racist. Did he say it
You're
was racist?
not us. You're talking about. I think when he came back in the late '80s,
Yeah,
or
from my
he. I don't think he's talking about the Yankees. He's talking about a time when he came back in the late '80s. Something happened. I've
okay,
heard that.
okay. I didn't know if this even because I
That wasn't
also
us. Yeah.
and also I don't know like when they do documentaries or do anything like that, they edit certain things out
Hmm.
to have a narrative. So then you can have this picture that, but like I said, there's always three sides to every story,
Right.
and you don't know what's really what. So I just had to ask that question because Reggie Jackson was he's another guy that played with Oakland. I
He
mean,
was good. He got to be sort of like Charlie with his business and not letting people run over him and stuff like that. He
right.
spoke his mind. Yeah,
And that's I mean that's and there's nothing and it's nothing wrong with that. It's just at the end of the day, who knows what he was going through as a person? Who knows what his family
exactly.
was going through? Who knows? Nobody knows because everybody wants to point the finger. But like we talked before we got on the air, I talked about some
Yeah,
stuff. You just don't know, and so you have to watch what you say because you
yeah,
never know. Tomorrow may bring a different day. So
yeah. Oh, I know. I heard that he was. Now I heard before us there was a team that refused to sign him because he had a Mexican girlfriend, but we didn't refuse. So
yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, as I'm get back to the questions. I mean, we're just kind of getting a tangent because I'm so excited. You brought up some names that, um, you you also do you have you heard of a guy named Catfish Hunter? I
Have
mean,
I? Catfish and my dad shared the same middle name, Augustus.
okay. And I
Yeah,
know he was an interesting pitcher back in the day as well.
I have a good picture of a very young catfish. Yeah.
Catfish hunter. It's good. I mean, so I just had to bring up a couple of names because guys think like, well, what are you talking about? Well, we're talking about the history of Oakland A's. We're talking about the Finley ball. We're talking about the young life for a young girl growing up with her dad becoming the owner of the Oakland A's. But before they were Oakland A's, there were another name. We're not going to disclose that name yet, but I want to talk about the first thing on chapter 38. If you guys get the book, the Finley book, chapter 38, it talks about the last Finley team. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the last Finley team?
That last team, I would say 75% of the roster was scouted by us in the late 70s. That is the team when we rebuilt for the second time. After free agency, we
Okay.
rebuilt and we had to use unknown players out of high school. If we didn't, Bowie Koo would be breathing down our neck. So we had to use unknowns. We had to rebuild and try to figure out if they had it. And we did, because between 78 and 80, the press was saying bad things about us. We were the pathetic athletics and things like that.
Yeah.
And then we just,
Blew up.
yeah, we came out. But dad hired Billy Martin. Dad's idea was
Mm.
at the end of the rebuilding, he was like the cherry on top.
Right, because Billy Martin was he was let's just put it this way, he was um he was a nutshell that you wouldn't want to crack. Put it that way. And I
Dad
said,
knew how to work with him. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because you got to think he was. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, everybody's. Some people just got different personalities. He's one of those guys you don't want to push because if you push, he's going to blow up.
Dad knew how to. Now, Dad told Charlie not to call him in the middle of the night. He had rules for Charlie to follow if we got Billy. So Charlie had to abide by those rules. Dad didn't want to risk Billy and getting upset.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, Billy Martin. So when your dad was the owner, who was his very first manager of the organization when he took over?
Frank Lane in Kansas City.
Frank Lane. Okay. And
It
I
was
know, Nancy, when your dad took over, help me out. The team was pretty bad,
They were
correct?
bad. They were bad, and they were for sale at an auction because the owner had died of an embolism. So the wife put it up at auction,
Okay.
and there was one person there to buy it. The sports editor of the Kansas City Star. He had businessmen there to invest, and then Charlie walks into the room, and Charlie had the highest bid, so Charlie won. And that sports editor shook his hand and said, "Hey, I've got a good GM if you need," and that was Frank Lane. And Charlie said, "Sure." Charlie thought they all wanted to be friends. So Charlie didn't know anything about how Frank Lane had been or that he was known for trading, but Charlie laid down rules. Do not trade without consulting me, especially the Yankees.
So to the audience, can you let's help the audience understand what you're saying because
Mhm.
you got quite a few families with names are very similar.
Yes.
Who is Charlie?
Okay, he's my uncle.
Okay, because
Insurance. He's
I
the
want to make
insurance.
he's the insurance guy. I,
Chicago.
and
Yes.
the reason I said that because I want to make sure people have clarity
Yes.
because you got quite a few names in
Yes.
your history and your family that sounds familiar because
Oh, I
now
know.
we got Charlie and we got your dad.
Hmm.
And what's your dad's name again?
Carl.
Carl. And the reason I said that because I want to make sure people understand because who is Charlie? Who's Carl? So
Yes.
let's get to the part where your dad takes over the organization.
Hmm.
From your understanding, from the story you got and all the information, what was that like taking over an organization that was at the rock bottom?
I was too little to know at the time. I remember my mom would say my dad was going to make money. That's what she would call it. So I would counterfeit money and during the day as a little kid, I would make actual money out of paper and stuff. But I remember the pressure dad seemed to be under. He was gone a lot. When he
Mm-hmm.
was a principal, he had set times. He was gone all the time. I remember being in restaurants in dark restaurants and being bored. I was an only child, but my cousins would visit and we would run everywhere. A lot of people called us spoiled, stuff like that. Um, but dad was traveling a lot.
Okay.
And I remember mom got on him about having to have a place to live because we lived in a penthouse for the first 9 months. And
Correct.
someone found one of my toys on the sidewalk that had gone out the window on the top floor. So mom said, we got to get her a yard now. So that was in Kansas City.
Yeah. And see, no, see, I
Yeah.
caught what you said, but I didn't want the audience to hear that. But you just said the key word. So I'm gonna have to get to the next question. I'm actually skip a couple of questions. So in 1960 to 1968, what was the name of the athletics at that time?
Kansas City Athletics.
Okay. And the reason I said that because you educated me when I bought your book. People don't know that.
It was
But
through 67. Right.
right, the people don't know that, because everybody think, well, the Kansas City Royals, I think they came after.
They did come after. They came after because that sports editor brought them in. There's actually a suite named after him there because
Okay.
he thought of our team as his. He never thought Charlie would come in and buy it. So anyway,
That's a story for another day. So I know
yes, it is. Yes,
we talked about that, but coming from the rock bottom, being the worst team in the Major League Baseball at that present time, your dad had a task at hand. He had a huge task at hand. Him and your uncle together, they had a job to do.
no vacations. That's right.
I could only imagine taking a team. You're excited about the team,
Right.
but at the same token, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You got to put a lot of people in place. You got to people you don't know. You got to trust people. You got to draft. You got to put everything is new.
We had Rickwood Field in Birmingham.
Okay.
Apparently, Reggie has started crying. I heard about this. He was on TV last summer, and they were at Rickwood Field, and he started remembering the racism. And he said that Joe Rudy helped protect him.
Okay.
And people were telling me because I was in Oakland at our 74 event, but that, stuff like that.
Okay. I like that what you said. I mean, so my question to you is this: your dad had so many tasks to take. Um, my question to you, I'm jumping ahead, is what made you want to write a book about the Finley ball?
What made me was, first of all, Dad and Charlie had not gotten to the point where they were ready to write a book, an
Okay.
autobiography. They didn't really trust writers. So what happened was every time I looked at a Finley book, I got upset because they said they would quote neighbors of cousins, and they would quote wrong information,
Okay.
hearsay, gossip. And I was so tired of it. I thought the only way I'm going to fix this is just write about
Mm-hmm.
it. In fact, someone in the press once told me I really needed to pay attention to Wikipedia. She said, "You wouldn't believe what's on there." So I had to have someone help me for 2 weeks make
Mm.
changes. I mean, but see, if I didn't do something, it would be worse.
Right.
But people love writing about us.
Mm. Well, like Nancy, like you just said, I mean, you this ain't your first rodeo and mine either. People like gossip because gossip sells.
I
And
have gossip. I have got different gossip. I have true gossip.
yeah, but that's called the gospel. That's a difference.
I like
Gossip,
that.
gossip, and gospel is two different things. One
I
is the
like
truth.
that.
One is the truth, and one is it looks like the truth, but it ain't the truth. It sounds good, but there's half of it's a lie. And the reason I said that is because this is not like I said our first rodeo, and I know how people think. I may not know what they're going to do, but I've been around a little while. I've been around the block more than 4 times. So I'm saying this because I've learned to keep my mouth shut and watch.
You
Because if
sound
you
like dad. You sound like my dad.
keep my mouth shut and watch people,
That's what
because if
dad did. Yes.
if you watch people long enough, they'll tell you who they are.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So I actually coach. I'm a baseball coach, and I do a lot of other things as well, dealing with baseball, high school, college, and I'm writing a book as well. But I know how people can be. And
Hmm.
sometimes people are so, what's the word? Flaky. Uh,
Oh, I've heard that a lot. And also
flaky.
braggarts,
Correct. And
like, yeah.
there's no good thing in flesh. There's no good thing in this flesh. None. I don't care how you size it up, how you want to put a bow on it. There's nothing good on it. Because at the end of the day, this is just what I believe. You need to be impacting someone to change their life.
Mhm. I
You know,
like that. I
and
like
if you're
that.
not impacting
Yeah.
them, you
I
know,
like that because it occurred to me that both Dad and Charlie built a team within 9 years. They had a team make it to the playoffs, and then look what happened. And they didn't have a a sports background. Dad was academic, but
mm,
Charlie never went to college, 1 year maybe,
mm.
but he
So
was,
that's hopeful.
yeah.
That's hopeful.
I know because they didn't have the college courses on how to work in administrative offices for baseball or anything like that.
Mm.
No, and uh, and look what they did.
Wow. It's that's an amazing thing because Nancy, you know how growing up, everybody said you got to go to college. You need to go to college. You need to go to college. I mean, that's all I hear. It was like overkill. I
Hmm.
said that because, you know, if you've done any research, people that listen to this episode 83, Nancy Finley, the author of Family Ball, if you did any research, most of the millionaires and billionaires don't have a college degree.
Hmm.
And I'm saying I'm not against college. Don't
Right?
take that the
Yeah.
wrong way. I'm not against it, but I'm just sharing with you that her dad and her uncle took over an organization, the Kansas City Athletics at the time. This is back in 1960 through 1968.
Hmm.
Then the name was changed to the Oakland Athletics, which is now going to be changed again. And that's the reason why I got on the show today is because Oakland has been going through so much turmoil for so many years. This is the time to talk about it. This is the best time to talk about it. And so I got you on here, and I want to talk about the Kansas City Athletics. That doesn't even sound right.
No, it doesn't. No,
That
we
even
used
sa-
to say A's because it's easier.
I mean,
People would say you shouldn't say that. Why not? Okay.
do you know? Did your dad ever tell you any of the bad things he dealt with purchasing a team at that time, if you can remember?
Oh well, the purchasing part was okay, but after they found out, they were looking at the books from before,
Hmm.
and they saw huge amounts of money being written to the media people.
Okay.
The checkbook had been in at the Kansas City Star location, and I remember Charlie came to Dad and said, "I'm not going to pay this. I'm not going to continue paying this. I don't know what it's for, but I'm not paying it."
Okay.
That's when the negative press started.
Mm.
Then the negative press was that we wanted to move. We couldn't wait to get out of there because there was nothing else bad to say. But that was wrong. But then what hurt was when the Kansas City Chiefs came in '63, they were
Okay.
given they were given a lease for $1 a year. That made us angry. so
A
so
dollar?
yeah, yeah. And so Charlie would say, if they don't give me the same thing, I'm moving. So that didn't help because then the Kansas City Star could point and say, look, he just said it. So it was just a vicious cycle. But yeah,
Wow.
a
A
dollar
dollar.
a year.
A dollar.
Yes, yes.
Wow. That tells you they want to get you in. We want to get you in here. Just get in here.
They were loved. We
Right.
didn't feel the love. They were
Mm.
loved.
Kansas
So
City, huh?
in fact, I remember when we had our mule in '65, it was boarded at the same place as the Chiefs mascot, which was named War Paint, and it had its own teepee.
I don't know where that name come from, the Kansas City Chiefs, but that's another story for another
Indian, yeah,
podcast. It's I know it's an Indian, but you know, talking about your
right.
dad and on chapter 25, we talk about the very own Catfish Hunter,
Mhm.
and you talk about Catfish, the $1 million man on chapter 25. Can
He
you
was
elaborate?
one of my guys in Kansas City. He, Dick Green, Sal Bando, and Campy were, I called them my guys. I had little dolls that I pretended was them. So I mean, I just loved them.
Catfish, huh?
Mhm.
So I'm gonna dive into chapter 25. We talked about that, you know, chapter
Yeah,
25.
that
You
was
talked
sad.
about Catfish. You know, what was Catfish based on your research? What was he like?
Wonderful. Oh, so nice, so nice. I always make sure to sit with his wife at events now, Helen. Very nice.
Hmm.
Just
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening. I'm
no,
looking.
very nice. I know Charlie has said that that's one of his biggest regrets was not making sure that he jumped on that and kept catfish.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this chapter. Chapter 25. I think something must have went wrong because it says catfish. That's chapter 26. I meant chapter 25. I need that chapter 26. Chapter 26. I apologize. Chapter 26. It talks about catfish, the million dollar man, the victory campaign, the Champagne 1974 World Series. It dried up before Marvin Miller, the head of the MLB Association, persuaded Catfish to let him file a grievance on his behalf. You talked about that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it talks about Dick Moss. It talks about Charlie a little bit, and then your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give him like a little snippet of what that conversation was
Mm-hmm.
like?
Catfish had an attorney slash agent who found a loophole. Charlie always paid late. You know how there's always a 15-day grace
Grace
period?
period.
Yeah,
Grace period.
yes. So Dad used to warn Charlie about that, but Charlie always paid on like the 14th day, and so what happened was Catfish's person saw that Charlie had paid later, and so it was a loophole that if you do not pay past the first, you can get out of your contract. Well, Charlie did at what was predictable, and he didn't look at it as being late because it said you have another 15 days. But he paid in that 15-day period, probably more toward 15. And and so there you go. In fact, it was I've always wondered if Catfish regretted that too because I don't blame him for going for that money. But I was there after his diagnosis for ALS. They had a private ceremony,
Mm,
and Charlie was deceased. Dad was there, and they all hovered around Dad and Catfish. And Catfish could not move his hands,
mm.
but he had tears in his eyes, and the other players started to cry, and it was just I could feel the family love.
Mm, okay.
They never wanted to be apart. They were probably thinking a lot of wasted time. It was very emotional,
Wow.
and
That's
it showed the love that had always been there.
Yeah. I'm looking at this. If you keep reading in your chapter, it says a misery year.
Yes.
1975 season began with Charlie split up with the first true star. The players officially unavoidable. Unfortunately, it was to be the last divorce of the year.
Hmm.
What
Now
do you
that was
mean?
also the year when Charlie was on the cover of Time magazine,
Okay.
where I pasted all the balls on the back of one of those whiteboards. So I alternated orange and white baseballs. He came to town with the first time with a girlfriend, not his wife,
Mm,
and I was looking forward to seeing her. So he invited me to join the adults on the town that night. I was so excited because I was still in school. And then in '76, he made me a VP,
mm.
but Dad didn't let me keep it.
Let you keep it, huh?
No, he didn't want publicity at all because we were getting death threats all the time.
I like that. I mean, I like what you said. I mean, you're giving us some things based on the information you have and your truths, to just give people some enlightenment of how things go outside the lines of baseball, inside the lines of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Which it brings me to the next thing, and for the people that are listening, episode 83, baseball does not have a mascot. I'm just gonna throw that out there before I get to this next question. I don't know too many teams. I mean, I know a few, but when I think of mascot, I think of them doing something throughout the whole game.
Yeah,
That's just what I think of. But now,
right.
you know, back in 1960 to 1968, your dad's taking over a team, Kansas City Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my question is, what was his? I know what his mascot was. Can you talk about a little about the mascot? What was and where do you get this name from?
Okay. Now the mascot, when we bought the team, the mascot had been an elephant figure, and it was on the
Correct.
stationery. Then in '65, Missouri's governor said he was going to gift us a mule,
A mule.
give it to us for our petting zoo. We had a petting zoo, And
A
Dad
mule.
had me watching reruns of Francis the Talking Mule too.
I
I
remember
don't know
those
why he
back
did
in the
that.
day.
So I we had the mule, and Charlie said Charlie O. Let's name it Charlie O after him. His middle name was Oscar.
So he named the mascot after himself.
Yes,
So
yes.
did he think he was a mule?
No, he thought it was him probably. Oh, he. I have a picture of the mule attending a press conference with his donkey friend
Mm,
in Kansas
okay.
City, and there are these banker types who look like they're trying to enjoy themselves.
Mm,
And then
mm,
he took it to a New York hotel lobby.
okay.
He took it to all over Disneyland before the us we got to go to Disneyland. That meal went everywhere, and it
Mm,
would. But in Oakland, we would bring it out before the home game started, and people loved it. Now,
wow.
one thing in Kansas City, its hoofs were painted black. In Oakland, they were painted white. This is going to be on a quiz later.
Wow. So let me ask you this question, Nancy, based on what you just said about the mule, Charlie O'Mule was the
Mm-hmm,
mascot
mm-hmm.
from from 1960
Five, 65.
65 to
December 76. The Where we had
1976.
it boarded, they called and said he had pneumonia, and that was there. He passed away.
Okay, so brings me to the next question. Where does this elephant comes in for for the athletics? And when I think of an athletic, I don't think of an elephant.
I know.
So my question is, where does this elephant? Where's this coming from?
Well, when the new owners took over, one of their a son-in-law with them said he preferred the look of the elephant because it was sophisticated, and so they brought the elephant back. So the mule is ours. It's our intellectual property, if you want to
Okay,
call it that.
okay. So
And yeah, that brings me to something that happened in 2015. I found out the A's were giving away 20,000 shirts with the mule's image on it. No, they no right to do that. And
really,
I even had his remains. They had let me take his remains. I didn't want him to stay out there.
mm,
So when I found that out, I contacted a VP and I said, "You don't have a right to do that." Sure enough, they didn't. Their attorney asked to take me to lunch.
mm. I mean, I really didn't understand. I still to this day don't understand what an athletic has to do with an elephant. I don't get it.
That was Connie Mack.
I mean, an elephant. But wait, okay,
I know.
let's dissect this just for a second. And I'm not trying to be ugly and hateful, but for the average person, and I'm actually a baseball player, former player, coach. When I think of an elephant, I think of something masculine. I think of something slow, territorial. I don't think it's someone athletic, quick, resistance, flexible. That's just my intake.
Exactly, exactly. And our mule was like a horse. It wasn't like a donkey. It was big for a mule, and
Mm,
it could leap over things. It could run.
okay.
But I know people think the elephant. I don't know what I found out is in the Bay Area there was a stigma against mules. People looked down on it, whereas in Kansas City it was Western. You had bow-legged people at the where we had it boarded, but in Oakland it was all English writing, where people have perfect clothes on. And Dad said he noticed that they turned their noses up when he told them it was a mule, that that we needed boarding. Um, but that's another story how that ended up. But yeah, but people loved going to the stadium to see the mule and have a photo op with it. And the kids loved petting it.
Mm, okay. It was a real mule, right?
It
Oh,
was a real mule. I couldn't get used to these people dressed up like mascots. I still can't get used to that. There's a person under there.
yeah. That's what I was thinking. See, what I'm thinking. I thought when you said a mascot, I'm thinking of someone dressed up as a mule.
No,
There's
no.
actually a physical mule at the
Yeah.
field.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
That's all. What? That's all I knew. I used to think other teams had live mule. I mean, live mascots.
I don't think so. I don't think that. I don't think. I mean, for safety reasons as well. I mean, so then that's just very interesting. I never would have thought that. Even when there's a couple of teams right now. I can think of quite a few teams. Like, okay, Chicago Cubs. Okay, I
Oh,
get a
they don't.
Chicago
They
a
that
Chicago Cub. But
that
I'm
cat's that
but I'm
cat's not
right. But I'm thinking of how these things connect with the team. A cub. Okay,
right.
that's a baby bear.
Right.
Okay, and so then you think about the Chicago Bears. That's in Chicago. That makes a little more sense.
Right.
But then okay, let's just think about Oakland. Even though there's no Oakland, it's not trying to. I'm not talking bad about Oakland. I'm just making comparison of mascots. Okay, you think about the Oakland Athletics. It's an elephant.
I
Okay,
just
then you think about okay, what else is in Oakland? Is there anything else in Oakland? It was the Golden State Warriors, and
Bigfoot. Okay, no, I can't.
so I mean, when you think of the Golden State Warriors, I think there's like a man with a lightning bolt or something. I mean, it's just I'm just trying to. I mean,
I agree.
I never really thought about mascots and what they mean, but if you think about it, like people don't think about stuff like that. They just go to the game to be entertained. They just want to be entertained.
Well, after Charlie O died in '77, I noticed people didn't get to the games early like they had. Charlie O brought people out to the games early.
Okay.
People wanted to see him,
Okay.
and it was sad. I mean, he was part of us, and so
Okay.
yeah, that was sad for me to hear he died.
Well, it's something that they do in college now. They do that in college. They have these mascots like a bulldog, Georgia bulldog. That's a bulldog, a real bulldog. Then you think about the Texas Longhorn. I'm just
Oh
thinking about
yeah,
they got real Longhorns out there. I'm just thinking of stuff that that really makes more sense. And I'm like, okay, if you start thinking about this, um, the Colorado State Rams, they got a ram. I'm just thinking about stuff that makes sense. That's all. We're not gonna go on a
I
tangent, but
understand. I
that's just.
have his remains. I brought them with me
Mm-hmm.
because I want to make sure that they're interred in the right place. And I knew they didn't really want it out there. So he's
So
with me. Yes.
my question to you next is about the Oakland A's itself. Today they're not called the Oakland A's anymore, which I'm sad to say that. Now, as of today, 2025, they're called the Sacramento Athletics for today.
That's long to say.
That's a very long name. Um, and they played their very first game. I think it was yesterday. Opening game was yesterday. Which I'm happy for them anyway. Still got the name, got the team. I was kind of hurt when they left Oakland,
Mhm.
but that's another subject for another day. My question is, are you still an Oakland A's fan?
Not with the way they are, because I wanted them to do it right. I wanted them to just stop with this. I just don't think what they're doing is right for the fans.
Okay.
But I'm waiting to see if other people have the same vision. I haven't, it doesn't seem like people have seen the same thing I have. I'm just sort
Mm-hmm.
of waiting.
Well, because you're in a different seat. You sit in a different seat. You know, your seat's a
Right.
little different than most people. It's like you're driving in the front seat, and everybody else is in the back seat, or they're behind you in another car. So their vision is totally different from your vision.
Well, you know what their real name is? It's it's Athletic Investment Group, AIG. That's their real name.
Oh,
That's
really?
on their contract.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because when you sign a contract, it says athletic and
Investment Group, in parentheses, AIG, and
okay.
that's what's on checks. So really, that's what they are. When I saw that name, I thought, what is that all about? So I don't know. We had our name would have been Charles O. Finley and Company.
Okay.
But
I got
anytime I see the word investment in something, I worry.
you. Okay. All right.
Just my opinion. Yeah,
I mean, like, and everybody's have their right to
yeah.
their own opinion, and also you as you continue to move forward, you're going from Dallas to
I'm in
Oakland,
Austin. Yeah, I'm in Austin right now. I
Austin.
mean, I was Nolan Ryan lives in my town.
So you were you were in Austin, Texas, growing up,
No, I'm
and
in Austin now. I was in Dallas. You're right.
I'm sorry, when you were a kid, when you
Yes.
raised up and you went to go be with your dad, you lived in his penthouse, and growing up, how was that life for you making that transition in high school? A high school girl, and your dad is the owner of the, at that time,
I
Kansas
I
City,
went. I went.
still.
No, this was. I moved to Oakland when I was just turned 11,
Okay.
and so I had just graduated elementary school. I was in public Oakland public schools. Who else has a child in Oakland public schools? Dad was a public school proponent,
Mm.
and he wanted to show solidarity to the city. In fact, Davy Lope's cousin was my assistant vice principal in high school, so we
Davy
could talk.
Lopes.
Yeah, we could talk baseball. Yeah,
That's Davy Lopes. We're talking about the L.A. Dodgers manager today.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And so, but in school, um, I never did any extracurricular activities. I would go straight to the Coliseum,
Okay.
but I was fine. I think Dad had a direct line to the administrative offices, and he would check on me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was fine. I enjoyed it. Some of my some of the parents of the kids I went to school with acted a little strange. My classmates handled it great, but sometimes I would call and the parent would say, "Are you at the Coliseum?" Yes, and then they would just be silent, like they didn't know how to deal with it.
I mean, because you're a kid that doesn't have a normal life from a public school
I didn't have a
kids,
mother.
right?
I had Dad's girlfriends.
Okay.
Um, were really good to me, but Dad always made sure I knew I came one first, number one in his life. But I had one girl who wasn't allowed to spend the night with me because she said I didn't have a mother in the house.
Mm. Which
But
that's
that,
respectfully, I can respect that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
people get their own reasons, like we said, that their
yeah,
own reasons. I mean, who
yeah,
knows? But respectfully, so I can respect that, because everybody got their own opinion, and it's their kids, you
right,
know.
right.
But I'll
And
just say,
I wanted company though. I was,
right.
yeah. So what I would do is when I was home, if I was staying alone, I would listen to the game on the radio,
Mm.
and as soon as it was over, I would make Dad something to eat, and he would come home, and we would watch the news together on weekends. We would watch Saturday Night Live when it came out.
Mm.
He took me to a lot of museums and movies on weekends when the team was out of town. And then in '76, we subleased to Bill Graham, who had the Days on the Green concerts. I
Mm.
must have heard Peter Frampton rehearsing 8 times,
Mm.
just over and over. So we would go out to do some work, and these bands would be there rehearsing. But I saw a lot of ambulances, and someone told me it was because of drugs,
Mm.
and that was a little freaky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who knows? I mean, which
I know. I
I'm gonna
didn't.
go. That
I
next
didn't want to
question
think of
about.
that.
I get it. I understand. I mean, you're in
Yeah.
California too. Let's think about, we're in California. This is different. We're not. California was back in the day. Who knows? But my point is, I mean, it took your dad 9 years
Mm-hmm.
to finally get a playoff. Do you recall of who those players were on that first team?
Campy, Bando, Reggie. Oh gosh. Catfish, Green, Monday. Rick Monday actually helped Dad coordinate the move from
Was
Kansas
was
City.
Rick Monday play for the Yankees too?
I don't know. He played for us at that
Okay.
time.
Okay.
He came from Kansas City. He was signed in Kansas City.
Okay.
And when we moved out to Oakland, Harry Carey was our announcer.
Oh,
He would
Harry.
stay. Yeah, I saw his family photos everywhere.
Okay. I
But
didn't know that Harry Carey was from the Chicago guy.
and then Joe DiMaggio was our one of our executives, and he would make Italian dinner for Dad, just the two of them.
Mm.
And he had there was some leftover food there.
You got some guys that you've been around. I mean,
I called him Joe D.
wow, that's huge. I mean, I know that I was looking at a series. I can't remember what it was, or maybe a video you sent me over in Vita Blue,
Yeah. Oh,
I will talk about that because
I love Vita.
Vita Blue was the very last one that's left on the team when they got rid of everybody.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
I know how sad it was when he was one of the ones that Charlie said we needed to trade. This was right after free agency, but it was blocked. But I don't care how it happened. I know Vita was back in our office coming up to get snacks, and he was just great. I love Vita. He went to work for the Giants, but he we used to call each other and play like music from the 70s to see if we could guess the song. We would just play it for a few seconds. And I'm in touch with his son Derek, who's a sweetheart. Vita was great.
Mm, mm.
I remember Dad telling me about Vita and Reggie on the plane, and he said they're going to be stars.
Reggie and Vita Blue. Wow, that's like having a tag team.
Oh,
You
I
get
found the way I found out we moved to Oakland because when I was with my mother, I was sort of blocked off from the family for a while. I looked at a boy's notebook in my class, and it had the Oakland A's on it, and I knew it should be Kansas City.
okay.
So I kept staring at his notebook, and he complained about, why are you looking at this? And I realized what it meant. We moved.
Mm,
It
I
meant a
hear you.
lot to me to see that sticker.
I got it. I get you. So,
Yeah.
quick question: if you can answer this question based on the Oakland A's, formerly known as the Kansas City Athletics, my question is this: where do they get these ugly green and gold colors from? I just had to get that question. I just had it through. That's not
That
even
that
that.
was like that was like the total opposite of white, gray, black, red.
It is. It's totally. It's just like on a totally different planet.
Yeah.
That those colors.
And Charlie had, I found out through my daughter's diagnosis, he has something called synesthesia. Someday they're going to find out how that helps Scout. But I found out because my daughter complained one day about her mind. She constantly saw colors. She asked me, Mom, don't you see the same thing? So we looked it up, and she was diagnosed with synesthesia, and it's a rare genetic condition. And the doctor said, somewhere in your family, someone else has it.
Hmm.
So I checked, I could not figure it out. And then I started looking around at our orange baseball, our green bats, our uniform colors. And then when you hear what Charlie did in Kansas City our first season, he painted the seats turquoise, fuchsia, hot pink. He went crazy with
Wow.
colors. And I realized he was the other one, he was the other family member. That's a sign of synesthesia. You're trying to communicate. It's Taylor loves to hear when I tell her what Charlie did and what colors he chose. He wanted to paint each base a solid color, and they said no.
No. Uh,
Taylor loves it. She can understand why he did what he did.
and I'm saying it to you because the reason I said because your dad bought the team. He bought the team, and my question is the reason I asked that question is because I can remember and recall some teams that they have a base color, but they kind of alternate certain colors, and sometimes after 5, 6, 7, 10 years it changes. But I've noticed for Oakland A's has always been green and gold,
They
and
don't have to keep those
that's
colors.
what I was like, why did was it the same colors when your dad was the owner?
Yes, and we expected them to say they didn't want those colors, but they kept them. Now, I found an article in 87 where they said they were going to go back to the drab, gray, white, whatever, and they didn't. I don't know what happened,
Mm,
but it's sort of like when they want to, then the fans make a statement
mm.
because they've tried to go to black. I mean, you name it. And whenever they want to change, the fans make an uproar.
Wow. I appreciate you saying that. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
curious to know because, we've been going on for almost an hour. It's been pretty good. I mean, like I said, we're gonna probably have to do this again, but I got a couple more questions that you
Okay.
can probably answer. You know, you've been around quite a few Hall of Famers and great coaches, great athletes. Who would be the top three guys that you could say that that you can recall that's still here around, living around it, that impacted you as a young girl growing up? Being your daddy is the owner of the Kansas City Athletics, formerly known as Oakland A's.
Still around. Oh God. Oh, Campy,
Who
but
can't be who?
He's not Hall of Fame. Campaneris. Campaneris.
Okay. And
He
what
should be if he's
what was
not.
he what was he doing back when you were young? If you can recall.
He was just he played everything. He could play everything.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, on that game, you can see what this says. We were advertising it. He was
I
going to
can't
play
put over
every
a little
base.
bit more, Nancy,
Okay.
because people can't see it. Campy. Okay. And what year was that?
That was 65. Look what it says. Thriller. I mean, who does that now?
It says Campy Campaneers night tonight for the first time in the story of the major leagues. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
It says, don't miss this thriller.
Okay. And then what year was that?
65.
65.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yep.
who else impacted you as a young girl as your father was the owner?
Well, who's still alive?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say I was gonna say Gene Tennis, but I still feel like he's new. I mean, he's new. Um, he was great. He was great. He's a great player. Another one. Oh, Ted Kubiak, our catcher.
Okay.
He's he's still around. Um,
And what about um how was I mean you talked about him a little bit, but I gotta talk about Mr. October.
oh, Reggie.
Reggie Jackson.
Reggie. I was saving that for the last. Thank you.
And also one more. There's one more. There's one more. Mr. 24. Ricky Henderson.
You know, he passed away.
I know. I
Oh,
just
okay.
gotta still talk about him, but I
I
can't
thought I
help it.
had to just mention living.
No, it's
You're right.
okay. I just had to say that. I
Yeah.
asked that question because I want to make sure that people can come back and relate to some of these players and do some research on these guys because
Yeah. I
but
remember
Ricky,
when Ricky started with us in 79.
yeah, Ricky was he was the Louis Vuitton of baseball.
My dad scouted him. Dad scouted him. Dad heard from our offsite scout. He went to see him. He said he's in.
And he's from Chicago, right? He was from Chicago and he moved to California, from what I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, he was living in Oakland he was going to Oakland Tech at the
Okay.
time.
Yeah, but I think he was born in Chicago and then he moved up to
Okay.
Oakland. But I think that, he threw left-handed, he hit right-handed, and he looks like a football player
He
playing
does.
baseball.
He does.
And
Ricky, I mean, I used to tease Ricky because in part two, Ricky was part the year he was the year when our roster was not up to MLB standards. I teased him because I said MLB owes you an apology for that. That's in part two. But
yeah,
he should they shouldn't have done that. But anyway, that's Ricky was part of 79, Brian Kingman, um, Mike Norris, I believe,
I remember those names.
and Billy North. Billy North?
Okay.
And
Yeah,
oh
because
yeah.
you got some classic names of guys. I mean, for people that listen, they may not know who these people are, but you have to do some research.
Oh, they should.
But if you're not talking about Mike Trout, if you're not talking about Aaron Judge, you're not talking about Mookie Bates, and there's no disrespect to those guys because they're in a league by themselves.
Mhm.
But before there was them, there was other guys, and then before there was Reggie, there was other guys, and there was before them. Because you brought up the very first beginning of the episode, we talked about Satchel Paige, and I'm like, honey, you just brought up Satchel Paige, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I didn't
in
know.
fact,
He was a class. He was in a
in
class by himself.
in our 73 World Series, we played against the Mets, and Willie Mays was on that team.
Whoa, see, you brought up something else. I didn't even know. You keep bringing up stuff. That's why I keep saying it. Willie Mays.
Oh, Kurt Flood worked in our front office in the late 70s. We gave him a job, even though he was blackballed. We didn't care. We gave him a job in the front office. He did some broadcasting for us, and he was very nice, very nice. Stayed in touch with my dad. Very nice person.
Because Willie Mays is a giant. He played for the Giants.
Yes. He was with the Mets in '73
Correct.
when we played them.
But
So
and
yeah,
then
three consecutive.
and his nephew, you know who his nephew is, right? Was godson, I think
That's not Bobby. That's
Barry
not
Bonds.
Bonds, is it?
Yeah, Barry Bonds.
Oh gosh.
Barry Bonds. I love
Oh,
Barry Bonds.
he's good. He's
I love
good.
Barry Bonds. I just it's just kind of interesting that you talk about these guys because I didn't know these things. You got Willie Mays. You talk about Willie Page. You talk about Satchel Paige. You talk about Ricky Henderson, Vida Blue, Reggie Jackson, um, and the list. And you talked about. You say Joe DiMaggio? Did you say Joe
Oh yeah.
DiMaggio? You talked about Joe DiMaggio. I'm like, who? How does this happen? You get all these guys. You didn't know who they were then, but who
No.
they are today is a totally different who they were. Um,
See,
I believe.
people need to know history. Like one
Right.
day, these the players of today will be history, and
Correct.
they'll want to be remembered.
Correct. And that's why I
And
brought you on the show.
thank you.
That's why I said that in the beginning because I know we're not gonna get through all this in one episode, and that's the purpose of that. And now that you brought that up, this is like the seventh inning stretch, and I go through. I have something called a true triple play. For some reason, I just lost it, and I got to go back into it. But I'm gonna go back into this a true triple play. This is a guy that we talk about three things about history of baseball, and you probably know who this guy is, but I'm not. I don't want you to say anything. I'm gonna read this guy. Um, he was born October 4th, 1944. He is a Hall of Fame baseball manager and player. He played over. He was with over 30 years of experience. Transited to the Chicago White Sox, Oakland Athletics, St. Louis Cardinals. He led his team to three World Series. In 2013, he was with the very own St. Louis Cardinals. He also won a World Series. He had his MLB debut May 10th, 1963, with the Kansas City Athletics. I'm gonna repeat that name again. I'm not gonna say his name yet, but he
I
was
know
with.
who it is. I
I
know
know,
who.
I know. That's why I brought it up. So that's why I call it true triple play. This guy made his very first Major League Baseball debut May 10th of the 1963 with the Kansas City Athletics, which you already know who he is. And his last appearance was April 6th, 1973, with the same city, Chicago Cubs. He wasn't that great of a baseball. He was okay, decent, decent player. But we a little few more things about this guy. Uh, Kansas City, Oakland Athletics, 1963, 1968, and 1971. He also played with Atlanta Braves, Chicago Cubs, but he was a manager. He started off as a manager with the White Sox in 1979. Then he went to the Oakland Athletics, which you know who he is, St. Louis Cardinals, and back at the White Sox. And he's a very own three-time World Series champion, 1989, 2006, and 2011. Four-time Manager of the Year. He's a St. Louis Cardinals retired number 10 and the Oakland Athletics Hall of Fame, and he's a St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame. He's the very own Tony La Russa.
Yeah. Yep.
So I had threw that out there because we talked about history, but that's something I talk about because a lot of shows they talk and just keep talking and talking, but no disrespect to them, but I have a mission.
But
I
they
always talk
weren't
about.
three consecutive World Series.
Correct, they weren't
That's right.
consecutive.
That's right.
It
Yes.
wasn't consecutive, but you know I didn't know that he has a Juris Doctor's degree at Florida State
He
University as
does.
well.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't know that. I mean, how did he find time to do that? I don't know, but he did.
Just like my
Um,
dad did. My dad has that from SMU, but Charlie barely got through 1 year of college
I
and
mean,
never, you know,
I just wanted to say that because he was probably one of my favorite coaches to watch growing up, and
mhm,
also he coached the Oakland Athletics back in the
mhm,
day when he
yeah,
had a very own Jose Canseco and what's the name, Mark McGuire. And it's interesting that Mark McGuire was with him in Oakland, and he also went with him in St. Louis. It's just interesting how that worked out. Uh,
sometimes I wonder, why they go with them. Is there something going on with the team? But yes, in fact, LaRousse is the one who told McGuire to confess to your steroid use right away. That's how attorneys think. They tell you if there's anything secret, get it out, or if it's controversial, just get it out, and that way no one will mention it again.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
smart.
Yeah, and it was, only thing I'm going to say about that part is this: back then, they didn't have rules about stuff like that. They really didn't say any rules. But then,
Right. Oh, I
but
know.
but now it's a big thing. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong. I'm not agreeing or I'm not disagreeing. But if there's not any rules in state, you're not breaking anything. If it's not a rule, that's all I'm saying. Is
That's right.
regardless how you say it, that's like going, if you go out on the road, there's no stop signs. How are you gonna tell me I was speeding when there's no regulations?
Exactly.
How can you say that? That's all I'm saying. I'm not gonna get in a debate. I don't want to get in a
Hmm.
debate. I'm just telling you facts.
Hmm.
So with that being said, I want you guys to go to Amazon and get a copy of this book here, the Finley the Finley play. I'm sorry, the Finley ball. Very own Nancy Finley. It's been great to have you on the show today. It has been nothing but a pleasure. Just want to keep asking you a few more questions. So, tell us something else that you've experienced that you don't like and you do like about MLB baseball today. Since because you've been around
Yes.
baseball all your life, so what are some good things you like and some things that you don't like about MLB today? Not just Oakland, but in
Yeah.
general, you see the
Oh,
difference.
MLB is changing things now, and they act like they're the first to make big changes, and their changes um, put seem to put more restrictions on the game, or I don't even want to think about computerized umpires, but like they'll how they talk about, well, okay, pitchers can't pitch more than certain games. There are some pitchers who say they want to go longer. They know their arm, they know how they feel. And I've had older pitchers complain to me about that rule. I understand it's for safety,
Correct.
but they have a limit on it. Um, and then the pitch clock was our idea. I don't know if it makes much of a difference. But one thing I wish they would do away with is in the World Series, I see these guys wearing gold chains. That could hurt them. That could go up in their eye. I don't know why they allow that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want jewelry of any kind on our players because that could hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And they allow that. I like the Braves player who wore the pearls. That was just funny. But that part I wish they would eliminate. And then they have, I don't know what I think about after the World Series. They stay there, and we would not, the loser of the World Series does not feel like sticking around. And I
Right.
noticed they do.
Excuse me.
They have these gatherings, and they present gifts and stuff, and the
Excuse me.
losers are there. So I think they should just sort of let things lie for about 30 minutes after a game. Let people leave if they want to. Um, but with MLB, it just seems to be where they are going overboard, trying new things. It's like they want to make up. They want to try to bring the crowds in. I don't know if they can continue to support the crowds like they expect.
Mm.
They need to cut back on games or something because people are going to minor league games now and they're enjoying it
Wow. Because
because
there's a hunt.
it's too
There's
expensive.
it's a lot of games. I can tell you that.
It is. It's they should probably cut back on the number of games or something. But people are loving the minor league experience now.
Hmm. That's interesting. You said that. I never thought about that. I know they have the pitch clock. The one thing that I do like that I'm gonna say is, I personally like the pitch count, the clock,
That was
and,
our idea.
and the one thing I don't like. I know people don't say what they want to say, but this is my opinion. This is Coach Laurie. This is my opinion. I don't like when they shift, when everybody shift over.
Oh,
I don't
that's
I don't like that. And
you're
the reason
right.
I say that, and I'm not saying that you don't want to have the
I
competitive
for,
edge.
yeah.
I'm not saying be competitive, but it kind of takes the fun out of the game a little bit.
I
And
forgot
and
about that.
and you can do that, but I'm just saying it because it's like, okay, we already know you're gonna hit the ball, so let's just go over. So just basically, just let's stick your bat out and just, we're gonna be
Yeah.
right here waiting for the ball, and that's okay. But I'm just sharing that with you. And the one thing I do like, besides I told you I do like the pitch count, and I do like this. I do like the instant replay. I like the instant replay because there has been many plays that changed the whole game, changed the whole series, and changed someone's stats. Because in their
Yeah, I don't.
contract,
Yeah.
they got stats. You got to hit a certain way to get a certain number of funds. I mean, for your contract. So
I don't know if we had that, but I like the instant replay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know that the contract is guaranteed for the most part, but when you hit, like, for example, Golden Glove, Silver Slugger Award, or MVP, and but it also is it's stats. There's all numbers. These are numbers. You got to hit certain numbers. You got to hit so many home runs. You got to steal so many bases. Whatever the case may be, it's business. This is all business.
When I there's a book out, I think I mentioned another Finley book out, and they didn't read mine, but he says that what matters is during the game. During the regular games is what matters. Once you reach a championship, it's all luck. So
I don't know about
I
that.
guess we won the lottery or something. I
I
don't
don't.
know. That was strange.
I don't know about that one. I can't. I don't agree with that one because
Thank you.
um, at the end of the day, somebody has to win and someone has to have a loss. But at the end of the day, it's just the way that's sports, and it's also entertainment. It's entertainment. That's it
Well, it
comes.
also says that when we left Kansas City, we had no other place to go but up. I mean, the way it words things about us, it's so bad.
Mm,
It's
okay.
bad. There's nothing good.
Well, let me ask you one more question before we get off the air about the transition from Kansas City to Oakland, and now we'll talk a little bit about Oakland. Back then in the '70s and the '80s, it was, the crowds came out, they supported the team. There was a little bit of there was a momentum going towards the Oakland Athletics. That's I mean it was prime back in the '80s. They brought some good players and they started with nothing, but then they got something.
Yeah.
Um, can you elaborate a little bit on your opinion? Why was the city not supportive towards keeping the team there? I mean, because I know they had a lease, but
You mean with us
yeah,
or
the Oakland Athletic.
recently with us or recently?
No, recently they just moved
Oh.
over. So I know that I just, in your opinion, based on what you know.
Oh, well, first of all, I know that this ownership has wanted to move for a long time. They have not been part of Oakland. They haven't wanted to be in Oakland. Um, so I knew that they would jump on any chance they had. Then the mayor's house is raided by the FBI around the same time.
Hmm.
He was new. So their defenses, Oakland's defenses are down. And
Okay.
Oakland hasn't really gotten up and fight. It depends on who's there. But that was probably the best time for Oakland to get out because investigations were being done, and I knew something was going to happen because they weren't looking at the team as much as they were their own inside.
Hmm.
And it was, yeah, they were finding a lot of corruption. So it's hard to work, to go up against it, your team leaving when you're being investigated.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a pretty sad thing. I mean,
It is.
not they don't have anything there. They don't have the Oakland Raiders no more. They
No,
don't have.
and Al Davis used to yell at us when he sat in our suite to sue. He said, "You need to sue more." I mean, it did work for him. And one thing I noticed too is in the parking lot, there's a lot of stuff left over from the Raiders. No one picks it up. No
Hmm.
one does anything. We
Hmm.
wouldn't have, that stuff would not have been sitting around with us, that,
Hmm.
looking like garbage.
So they played in the same stadium.
Oh yeah, it was fine. We didn't
Hmm.
mind it.
Hmm.
But when they were finished playing, everything was cleaned up. We came in.
I got you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that question because I mean, it's not often that you get someone that's their father was the owner of a major league baseball team, and you wrote a book about it and talked about it and the things you experienced. No, the average everyday person has never experienced.
Well, there used to be a Hyatt across the freeway, Edgewater Hyatt. That's where the team stayed. That's where visiting teams stayed. And we gave them their business. The Raiders used it too. Sometime between 2005, 2010, I heard that one of the owners started busing the players to San Francisco and they stopped using the Hyatt. The Hyatt went out of business and closed.
Mm.
That place had great restaurants. And when that place closed, then another restaurant closed on the way to the airport. That's also what happened that drove that area down.
Mm. Well,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
terrible.
that's I mean, but unfortunately, it's going to be part of history books now, and we got to continue to move forward and have an optimist mind about it. Who knows? I
I,
mean,
I, I loved being able to run into players like Raiders players or whatever at the Edgewater Hyatt coffee shop. That's where people would run into other people. And it
hmm
was right there after you got out of the airport.
yeah.
But it's no longer.
Unfortunately, I mean,
Yeah,
nothing we can do about it. Just all we can do is talk about the good times and rejoice
I
over that
know.
and be
I,
grateful. I mean, because there was an opportunity. I mean, there's other teams as well that's not there around. Montreal Expos, they're not around anymore. I
I
like them. I
I
like
wanted to
them.
see them play Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing the Montreal Expos back in the day. You got the Oakland Athletics back in the day.
Mhm.
It's basketball as well.
Well, I remember when they left and they were planning to leave, but no one seemed to be upset about it. I guess if it's a San Francisco move, then it's okay.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show today. This is the episode 83. The author of the Finley book, the very own Nancy Finley, her
Let's have a
father.
quiz later.
Yeah, I
Okay.
will have a quiz later, and I really do appreciate it. I mean, is there any closing remarks that you can give to the audience, and also a way they can get a purchase of your book? And when is your next book coming out?
The paperback is due out um, this month, end of this month,
Okay,
or in the middle of May. And then part two, I'm hoping for end of this year because it's going to be like this book, thick.
okay,
And it's going to explain free agency and how we rebuilt. And then explain what Charlie did after he sold the team and what Dad did. None of that is out anywhere. No one knows.
okay.
So, but I want people to know that Dad and Charlie built a winning team when they didn't have a sports background.
Mm,
They had
wow,
passion and they didn't just count stats, they did everything.
wow. So
So,
basically, you're telling me there's hope with against hope. There's always hope.
yes, yes. But if you partnered with someone who has the same passion you do, you could build it too.
Correct.
That's
Right.
what the word I'm trying to get out.
All right. I like that. I mean, but you got to have a vision first. Without a
Yes,
vision, the people perish. You know,
yes.
you got to have a vision. And,
That's right. And I heard that when Dad left the high school, he never told anyone why he was leaving. He never gave a reason. He probably thought he would be back for his old job.
it's funny as you said that. I was just thinking about something. I'm going to read something that I think was interesting that you just said. That you said hope against hope, and we talked about so many different things that people don't think about, because they're like, well, I don't have the degree, and I don't have this, and I don't have this. But I'm going to read something to you, which I already know it by heart, but I'm going to read it anyway. And listen to this. It says, "Now faith is the substance things hoped for, the evidence things not seen." I just read something to you. So basically, your dad and your uncle, they basically started with ground zero, but they had a hope, a dream, and some passion. But most importantly, they had faith. Because faith is something you don't see, and you have to move on something that you don't see because you believe that you believe that you believe, and it's going to happen. But with that, there's going to be some trials, some tribulations. But as the going gets tough, keep on going, you know. So that's just something I wanted to say. I want to say thank you again, Nancy.
Thank you.
Did you say they can get your, what can they get a copy of your book at?
Right now on Amazon.
Okay.
It's out at other places, but I know for sure Amazon.
Well, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your time and all the wisdom
Thank
and the things
you.
we talked
I'll
about
send
today.
pictures.
It has been great. I mean, it's been it's different, but I like it. It's just, we talk about the beginning of times, and you talked a little bit about some guys that you never talk about. We have Satchel Paige, Tommy Lasorda, Vida Blue, Reggie Jackson. Uh, who
Oh,
else?
Billy Martin. I have
Oh
stuff
yeah,
about.
Billy Martin,
Yeah.
and oh man, the list goes on. I'm like, this lady's been around everybody. So, but thank you very, very much, and I'm gonna end it off with this. I'm gonna say this. I ask the question to my guests all the time. It says, "Where are you being led?" The question is, "Where are you being led?" LED. When you have a car, everybody has a car or a bike, or they're always going in some direction, always going somewhere. The question is, where are you going, and why are you going there? And the reason I said where are you being led, because I know that you know that faith. I just read it, Hebrews 11:1. Faith comes by hearing, not by talking, by hearing, and hearing the word of God over and over and over. So I asked that question. Is L stands for listen. Listen to what Nancy talked about and I talked about today. If you got a dream, if you got some hope, it's possible. We got two guys that started with nothing. A guy that was an insurance guy and a guy that worked for a high school started an organization back in the day. It was harder today. Who says that? Which leads me to the next letter is E. What does E stand for? Execute on everything you just listened to. Execute. If you have faith, you have to execute. Put foots with that belief and walk it out. Execution. And the D stands for dominate. God's given us all the ability to dominate on every situation, on everything, because we're made in His image. Thank you. God bless you. Never stress. It's Coach Laurie, aka Seville, and very own episode 83, Nancy Finley. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Never
Thank
stress.
you for having
Have a
me.
have a great day. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.